I know what you are.
Say out loud. Say.
This is hot, Ray. Symmetrical book stacking, just like the Philadelphia Man's Turbulence of 1947.
Well, everybody, it's the spookiest time of year. Were you aware, Ross, that it's a spooky time of year?
I was very aware. They play spooky songs on the radio at grocery stores now.
Well,
That's how I know.
Just as Halloween starts to hit, you're starting to get Christmas, and it's like, go away. Go away right now.
Yeah, they are already preparing at all the stores. I've seen it, and it's terrifying.
And Walmart's worse. You know this.
Yes, I do.
I mean,
it's the worst. They already have it set up.
I worked at Walmart for probably 4 years compared to your, year or so now?
Year and a half.
Yeah. So I've still got more time behind it, but yeah, Christmas is a special time for the grocery store. It's just, you get punched in the face with that same song over and over again every year.
You know the one.
I'm glad it's a scary time of year. We'll push that back. We'll push that back for a little while. Keep the special. we're still lost in the DG podcast scary level of this theoretical video game we're playing.
Yes, absolutely. The sewer level.
The sewer level. Freaking prodigies running around screaming at us. Why is this weird
with his
British
spiky
guy?
hair and American flag sweater?
Yeah, but sweater like his nan knitted it for him.
Oh, me nan knitted me sweater.
As opposed to the Breathe music video where him and this black guy are yelling at each other through a hole in the wall.
As you do.
Breathe with me. Yeah, and it's got this weird, almost electronic sword/whip noise. Gee.
Yeah, it sounds like it's from like Tenchu or something. It's so weird. I love it.
It's pretty strong. Oh, Prodigy. You know what's so...
No.
It's always a lament of like punk rock sort of guys. Is they're always like youthful rebellion, fighting against the man, and we do whatever I want to, screw you, get crazy tattoos and piercings all over my face. And then they look really sad when they're middle-aged. You're like, ugh. That works really well for like that short period of time when they're like 20s to 30s, and then maybe in their 40s somewhat. But like you don't stay youthful rebellion when you look like a roadmap of tattoos and piercings. Like, oh, you're gross now. Ew.
Yeah, and you know what the worst ones though are, I think, are the pop punkers from like my high school era. Like your Blink-182s, your Simple Plans, your Sum 41s, like those guys, they look really pathetic these days.
Well,
no offense to everybody.
It's hard to sing about being lazy all day and your parents don't understand you when you're in your 40s and 50s.
Yeah, that gets real lame.
Let's hang out at the club and do ecstasy. And it's like, get away from me, Grandpa.
Like, go away. What's wrong with you? It's like that scene from Smiling Friends where, dude, you're so old. Go back to your wife. Like,
Go back to your wife, loser. You know what I want, I don't know why this tickles me, but the idea of just an over the hill like guy that was in that decade that didn't leave, but still just way too old. Like some guy in his 40s or 50s with like frosted tips or something. Like I want that guy.
oh, well,
Sugar
well, we
Ray
have him.
just keeps
It's-
going.
it's the diners, drive-ins, and dives guy, Guy
Okay.
Fieri.
Guy Fieri, bring you to Flavor Country.
Yeah. Oh, he's taking you to Flavortown. By God, he's taking you to the bustling burg of Flavortown.
The burg of Flavortown,
Wanna
in
be
Flavor
honest?
County, part of the state of Flavor,
The state of
country
the state
of
of
yum.
flavor. I'm gonna be honest. I am so impressed that his hair has held up so well, considering he's been bleaching it for God knows how long.
You think we might get at some point just hair falling out Guy Fieri? You know, the only
Get
way
that.
he would have to reinvent himself is he would have to go bald white man. So he would.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
the problem is the shape he's in. I would anticipate he would have to lose a bunch of weight for that to work.
Yeah,
Like visually.
yeah. If he's gonna keep the goatee, for sure.
Otherwise,
Yeah,
it's
for
just
sure.
just sad.
It looks real sad.
Just gonna
He's
get
gonna
real
get that-
sad.
That terrible bleached Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes hair.
Woo!
Woo! Oh.
Speaking of spooky, do you have a favorite horror movie?
Ooh. Yeah, I do. And these are Ponzi answers, and I'm not a snob. I want to
No,
make that
you're
very clear.
notoriously poncy and snobby. I know Ross.
But,
Ross walks around with his pinky up, drinking his tea with his
all the time.
with his when he wears suits, he has the vest underneath the suit jacket because it just looks douchier for some reason.
By God, you're right.
Cummerbund.
Yep, definitely.
Are you a cufflings or button man?
Oh,
Cufflings, right?
cufflinks! Come on
Yeah.
now. Like,
Yeah,
let's-
I've never
like-
been high status enough to go cufflings. I'm
Mm.
I'm a working class button man myself.
sewn on buttons, reliable. You know.
Like a poor man. That's how I keep my sleeve closed.
Ew, disgusting.
Gross.
No, but it's either like the Babadook or the Witch, which are very Ponzi answers, but I love them both.
Babadook, that Australian movie.
Yeah.
Interesting choice. Because, well, Babadook is like, not to criticize Babadook, it comes across as sort of like a mainstream like James Wan sort of horror movie, but with a lot smaller budget.
Oh, which is crazy because those are already cheap movies, right?
Right. So it's filmed really well, but then you see the Babadook and it's just like a guy. If you freeze frame the screen, it's just some guy with a suit.
Oh yeah,
Like,
or
oh.
a paper cutout.
Yeah. Yeah. So they do a lot of classic horror where you don't quite see the monster. He's just kind of in the background or shadowy or whatever, which works really well. But eventually you want to see the giant horror monster, like where he has his giant hand wings or something near the end, but you just never see it.
Yep.
It's always just like off screen. So that works for the horror element of the monster you can't see. Sort of your mind fills in the blank and makes him more terrifying. But you could tell they didn't have as good a budget as like a Hollywood, like James Wan film.
Yeah, he was never going to be the guy at the end of Insidious or the nun from the Conjuring films.
But you're a big fan of the Babadook of all things.
I do. I love that movie. Well, I mean, that movie's a big allegory for grief. I mean, the Babadook is grief. Sorry to spoil it, everybody.
Well, yes, the loss of the everybody. Babadook spoilers. Babadook spoilers.
10-year-old movie.
Her husband dies in a car wreck, and her son is a psycho. Like half of that movie, you're like, you should hit that kid. You should punch the crap.
Why
out of
can't you
that
just be normal?
child.
He's just screaming in the back seat.
And then by the end, the son is the reasonable one, and the mother's going insane.
Yeah,
Which
she kills the family dog and like losing her mind.
Strangles it or whatever. Yeah. Well, my favorite part is she basically keeps the Babadook in her basement and feeds it worms, and I'm like, what is this? Why is she keeping him around? Murder the Babadook.
See, Rhett, it's about grief. You have to feed your grief. You have to let it be. You can't ignore it, or else it grows and it will eat you.
No, I strangle.
That's what
I
it's
strangle
about.
my grief with a pillow.
I ignore it until a blood vessel bursts in my brain,
I suffocate it.
much like stress.
So if they killed the Babadook, it would come back stronger than ever, much like grief. So they have to.
Yeah.
They can't forget about it. They keep it around. And why would you feed grief? Wouldn't you come to terms with grief? Like if we were keeping the analogy open, they should have had like the across the negotiating table handshake with Babadook. The deal has been struck. We have come to terms with grief.
Make your mark, Babadook.
Donald Trump and Babadook make a deal.
Oh my god. It's just shaking hands with like the signature of the contract in the background. It's an amazing deal. It's really incredible. The Babadook, great guy, great hat.
History of the Babadook is just every major deal. Like we get black and white photos in a rail car with French and German soldiers, and they're shaking hands across the table.
He's just
The
back
Babadook's
there.
Yeah. He's like, this is how we should have handled this.
I mean, come on. That's how it should have been.
What was
just
your
gotta
other
talk to
movie
him, you know?
besides Babadook of all things?
I really like The Witch. The Witch was so good.
The Witch is really good. That's a one watch for me though, champ.
Oh, I totally get that. And I think for most people it is. And with horror movies, that's fine. You don't, most horror movies don't need multiple watches. That's certainly not multiple, really paying attention watches.
Well, I loved that movie for the simple fact that it is an amalgamation of myths and legends and horror stories from colonial America, and they're all just sort of mashed together.
Weirdly
in one big
accurate,
story. Right? So the movie actually follows actual myths and legends. They're all just kind of mashed together from colonial America, and I'm fascinated by colonial America, where it's just like you're in the wilderness and there's no one around, and it's like a 45-minute horse ride to get to town, and it's just it's like very thick, forested, sort of makes you think that there's scary things in the forest. New England, just love that. That's where you get the Headless Horseman, and that's where you get a lot of love that stuff, and all of that fascinated me. But it's like the movie had no. You don't have to have happy endings in horror movies, and I understand that there's a cliche that horror movies always end with, but the monster's not gone, or there's always a little thing where the horror never goes away. It's so exhausting. Like, for you to follow a protagonist and root for them and try and hope that they make it through these situations, and then it's like, then they don't. It's emotionally exhausting to invest in those characters. And that's part of my problem with The Witch, is you're like, oh, everything's horrible. Will somebody make it out? Or will the The evil, and it's just everything ends awfully, and then she's off naked with witches in the forest. And it's
Flying
like,
around.
yeah, well, it's just like,
He chose to live deliciously, Rhett.
So you just walk away from the film, it's just awful, everything awful.
Team Satan won.
Team Satan.
But
check
the
mark.
thing that cracked me up about that movie is like, because you think going into it, you're like, oh, it's going to be a is it real kind of a thing. And like, what, 10 minutes into the movie, it's like, oh no, yeah, there's a witch, and that witch super ate that baby. Like, oh, okay, well, it's real. Sweet. Because you're going to be like, oh, it's like in their head. And that is an aspect of it even still. Because like they're blaming
Black
stuff
Peter.
on each other or the witch or whatever, but
The goat.
it's not maybe necessary. Yeah, the goat, dude, Black Phillip,
Yeah, Black Phillip.
who is definitely still Satan. Everybody.
Yeah, he's Super Satan.
Again, spoilers for a 10-year-old film. Everyone.
This is just, we do not do spoil. We do not do holding back our opinions on that's not how this podcast is run. If it's a newer film, I'd put up the spoiler thing, but at this point, it's like,
oh, sure. Yeah. But it's a great movie. You should all watch it. It's very well made, like really well made, like super period accurate. I mean, even the house they built, as far as I understand, is like built like how they were back then. As far as like how it's laid out and everything.
He's doing Nosferatu.
It's so good. Oh, that's right. Dude, I'm excited for that.
Yeah, he is. He also did Norseman, and Norseman's also really good. And it's based off of Norse mythology and various stories amalgamated together.
Mm-hmm.
I read
He's a great director. You know what movie of his I need to see, though?
What's that?
Didn't he do that Lighthouse film?
Yeah, I heard good things about it. I haven't seen it yet. It's on my list of movies to watch. You got him in the mood for like a weird movie.
Oh, absolutely. Especially with that one, as far as I understand.
I read a thing. There was this guy on Reddit, take for what it is, but this guy on Reddit who was an extra in Norseman. And they filmed it in a great location, and it was like cold and rainy. And he's like, first day, lots of actors, and you can tell in the movie, they don't do shots of the village very much because they had a lot of actors for the first day, a lot of extras, and then no extras showed up for the next day. So he's like, you could see me, I'm on the side in one of the shots, but like I would show up for the next day and just nobody was there. And it's like, oh, we're not doing big wide shots of the village anymore.
Oh, okay. Never mind, everyone. Nobody wants to do this.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, Norseman was fun. If you're, it's one of those like auteur directors that I'm actually kind of still a fan of. Every film he does, he just consistently has quality. Even if you're not 100% behind the story and whatnot, I know what he's trying to do.
Yeah, I like everything I've seen of his.
Tarantino's kind of a hit and miss for me. Wes Anderson's kind of a hit and miss for me, mostly miss.
Denis Villeneuve is that way
Denis
for
Villeneuve
me.
could suck a big one. I think he's only miss as far as I'm concerned. And you're like, oh,
well, you like
good.
Blade Runner 2049.
Well, it's a bad Blade Runner movie. It's an interesting sci-fi movie. That's my answer to Denis Villeneuve's Blade Runner. It's a terrible Blade Runner movie.
Sicario's good. I do like Sicario.
I don't think I've seen Sicario.
I think you'd like it. It's a good movie.
Well, everybody brings up Dune. It's like, oh, Dune was amazing. It's like, it wasn't good. It had problems. Visually, it was fun. And everybody talks about, oh, it's the first one's one of the best. And it's like, as somebody who was an old school Dune fan, who read all of the classic Dunes and then all of the Dune books by his son, and he's not as good. I know the story in and out. I played the Dune video games, Dune 2000, and then the Dune
oh my God.
Alliance or whatever. And then the recent one, the Spice Wars. I played that one. I've seen all of the I'm not a fan of original Dune director weirdo man.
David Lynch.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of his, but I liked that movie. I have DVD copies of the of the made-for-TV Dune movie that they made in like the early 2000s.
Oh. Yeah, for sci-fi.
Yeah, Dune, and then
Yes.
they did a Dune Messiah, I believe, as well, because there was a second. They actually continued the story afterwards, where Paul comes back and his son is going crazy and starts to become the worm god.
I love me some God Emperor Worm Man.
Yeah. I don't know. As far as horror movies, it's like, because it's like, how do I say good? It's like movies that I personally just like and can rewatch, or movies that had a big effect on me. Because like, I mean, like Terminator, the original, you would consider a horror movie in a way.
Totally. Yeah. Did you? I'm sure you've heard this, but the original plan was to have like Lance Henriksen play the Terminator, which would have been actually much scarier because he can actually blend in. He's not a 6'3" tall bodybuilder from Austria.
This is a really quick aside story. There was this guy my mother knew, who nobody knew. He's the most normal looking, weedy, just normal middle-aged looking guy. He's got a mustache, and it's just, he's a normal looking dude, and nobody ever really knew what he did for work. And then he finally, because of stuff, he released a book where he apparently worked for the CIA. She has his book that she gave to me, and he signed it and everything. She got it for me for Christmas. Worked for the CIA, and he has a whole like written story of during the Cold War, like him in Russia, running from KGB and hiding in a barn house. Like, it's a really interesting story. The book is called Road to Potevka. Train to Potevka, I think it is. Anyway. And it's very LDS, by the way, because he's LDS. Because, surprise, a lot of people who are LDS end up in the CIA because they speak multiple languages, like he did, because he spoke Russian.
Yep.
So there's a lot of like him talking about his faith in the book and stuff. But it's always the normal guy that's, you want the spy that's a normal looking fella that can like make it in. You don't want you don't want the guy that looks like James Bond, because it's like, oh, that's the spy. Like that's him.
Hey, he's here, everybody.
Arnold Schwarzenegger's too much of like, oh, it's just like, even if he wasn't the Terminator, you'd avoid him.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, like he's just kind of
crazy giant Austrian.
He
or
just
whatever.
sticks out so much.
Yeah. Alien's probably one of my favorite horror movies.
Ooh.
Alien 2.
Classic.
Yeah.
The
I
Thing.
know comedy, but Beetlejuice is really fun.
Oh, we love Beetlejuice.
I love Beetlejuice. Ghostbusters is in the comedy horror range, and I love Ghostbusters, original Ghostbusters.
Oh, yeah.
And especially when you're a kid, you don't quite get a lot of the comedy, so it almost leans more horror for you than it does comedy sometimes. You're like, oh, freaking dog monster and stuff. Creeps you out.
Yeah.
And not to put, but obviously there's discussions in normal podcasts, but since we're here and it's the special time of year, the Halloween time of year, my birthday's around Halloween. I've always had sort of a Halloween based birthday. It's, I mean, video games have always been a big part. Has there ever been a video game, like your favorite horror video game, or video games that were scary enough that you even stopped playing them?
Oh, my favorite horror video game's gonna be, I mean, people would argue this, but Resident Evil 4.
Okay. It's
And
either
the reason
RE2
it's-
or
I mean,
RE4 is what people come up with.
Yeah, and RE4 for me, because it's more action-oriented, so I can actually play it, because I am a giant pussy. I don't do well with horror video games, because I'm a candy ass. You know what game really got me? Because of where I grew up and some of the situations I would, like me and my friends would go put ourselves in, is the game Condemned. Because in that game, you wander around a lot of condemned old buildings and like old offices and like places that have been abandoned, right? And it turns out they're full of crazy homeless. And there's places like that where I'm from, and so like playing that game made me go like, oh my god, I could have been murdered by a hobo and nobody would have known. Like, like, and that
you
game.
think back at things you did as a kid, and you're like, that was a bad decision.
Oh yeah, that game like brought it into full focus for me, and I mean, I still went and did it even after I played that game. But in the back of my mind, it was always there.
What was I
always
thinking?
there? Yep. But that game I had to stop playing because it freaked me out, and it's a really good game. I remember liking it a lot, but I'm just too much of a wuss, and that game purposely controls terribly, so to make it scarier with its crazy field of view.
I've never been a big Ari fan. Like I could play Ari games back in the day, but you know what? The first game that actually started to make me a little creeped out. It was. Now that I'm blanking on it, you go the city underwater. You know what I'm talking about? The Ayn Rand.
Oh, BioShock.
BioShock. That one actually kind of creeped me out because there's a claustrophobic feel, and then like the enemies weren't just monsters; like they would talk to you.
Yeah,
say things
like horribly freakish people. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
There's like, a couple of sections of that game that were really hard to get through for me.
Big Daddy comes out, and then he's like stalking you. You're like, ugh. Oh, my.
Yeah, that game. God, I love that game. I want to replay those, but since I know where it ends up, I don't want to. You know what I mean?
In the really bad Infinite game, like I play BioShock 2 over Infinite any day, because BioShock 2 is just, if not more mediocre, more of the same.
Yeah, I remember trying to play it maybe a year or two after it first came out, and I did not like it. And I bet you I'd like it more now, because since Infinite has come out, and I've played it, obviously, again, 10 years ago. And the thing is, I was so excited for Infinite because I loved the setting. I loved that time period. Like, I was amped. And then I played it, and I went, oh, this is terrible. Like,
yeah.
This is really stupid. Never mind.
Whenever you hear about games that go through a lot of iterations and reworks and stuff, even just movies too, you start to learn it's like, oh, there's a reason why it's bad. They didn't have a focus, and what they were doing wasn't working, and trying to revamp it wasn't making it better.
No, it's such a rare instance where that ends up working. You know what? The one instance I can think of off the top of my head in video games where it did was Halo. The very first Halo game. That game it started out as an RTS and then went to a third-person shooter for Mac, and then became the first-person shooter for Xbox we all know and love. And I think the story I always heard was, I mean, that game came about within less than a year.
Yeah, it just got thrown together.
From going, oh yeah, like they were rushing to make it what it was. And that's why it doesn't have, a really super fleshed out multiplayer, and like that first game was missing some things because of that. So
now we have 343 that was so successful they had to change their company name because they've so damaged their reputation among gamers that they're, we'll set that aside. That also reminds me of GoldenEye on the 64. Started out as a rail shooter.
Yep.
Yeah. It wasn't a first-person shooter at all. It was a rail shooter.
And then it became the game that made first-person shooters on consoles.
Yep.
It happens, but it's so rare. Like, it's because usually they end up stepping on their own dick and completely screwing it up.
Oh yeah. And talking about things that were in such a mess production-wise that ended up crashing and burning was the big story this week that everybody's been talking about as I revamp this. Blade. I'm going to move.
Oh.
Now, clickbaity title aside, was Blade canceled? And the answer is kind of.
Yes.
it was essentially removed from the 2025 release calendar, and as best we could tell, it's not being worked on. Because the thing, I know this has a timeline. We're not really getting into it, but the thing had a really bad development cycle where they went through sort of multiple versions of the story and writers and directors and stuff, and to the point where Mahershala Ali, who's a very good actor, was sitting there going, "Are we doing this movie or like what's going on?" Like original
Always a good
versions
sign.
were like about his daughter and her friends being like vampire hunters. Which, by the way, to anybody in Hollywood who's listening to this mediocre podcast, stop doing that. Stop making a movie about a character that's why we're there, and then make the movie about somebody else. Don't do that. Ant-Man Quantumania, they made it about his daughter or anybody else besides Ant-Man. This happens too often. Don't put the main character on the marquee and then make the movie about anybody but that. It's the freaking Doctor Strange movie, Multiverse of Madness, where it ends up being more about Scarlet Witch. And it's like, ugh, is this a Scarlet Witch movie or is it a Doctor Strange movie? Like what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Don't do that. You make the audience feel cheapened because the show that they came to watch isn't what they came to watch. It's not what it ends up being about. And by all accounts, the rumor is that it's been canceled. It has been in development hell for ever.
Yeah. I would, and we'll find out at some point, I'm sure. I'm very curious to know how much money they've sunk into this just at this point.
But a quick go over of the timeline. 2011, they got the movie rights. 2013, Kevin Feige confirms Blade is back at Marvel Studios. 2017, Feige teases bringing Blade to the MCU. 2019, Marvel Studios announces a Blade reboot with Mahershala Ali, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. 2020, he reveals that Blade was being developed as a TV series. Marvel's looking for writers in 2020. 2021, Marvel hires Stacey Osei Kuffour to write it. 2021, later that year, Blade filming start date is pushed back. Marvel hires Bassam Tariq to direct it. Tariq reveals first details about the script, which nobody likes. Blade voiceover. See in the ending post-credit scene for Eternals. Eternals producer reveals Blade. Reveals the cut Blade cameo. Teases a crossover. They cast another actor. Character descriptions leak online. Aaron Pierre cast in Blade. Blade cinematography hired.
Going on?
Blade loses its director. And they were originally slated for 2023. Announces new release date for 2024. Hires new director and new writer. Feige announces the new shooting date. Cinematographer drops out. Mia Goth cast in Blade. A script polisher is hired with Nick Pizzolatto, who worked on True Detective Season 3. Season 3 sucked, by the way. Blade shuts down due to writer's strike. Delayed again. Michael Green to rewrite Blade, so we've got a third writer at this point. Blade writer refutes reports that Mahershala Ali was fourth lead in female-led reboot. Marvel Studios' Blade reboot confirmed to be rated R. Blade release date pushed back again. Ali updates Blade status. We're working on it. I'm really encouraged with the direction of the project. Aaron Pierre reveals he dropped out of Blade. Mahershala Ali joined Scarlett Johansson in Jurassic World 4. Jan Demeng leaves as director. Delroy Lindo drops out. Disney removes the release date. How many directors
Good
are that?
Lord.
3 directors, 4 writers. To the point where
a
we're
few
all
different
just,
actors.
shrugging and going, "Is this happening?" I don't.
Oh my god!
Well, which makes you confident in the direction that Marvel goes, because you might be asking yourselves like, "Oh, that's really unfortunate. What's been going on with this movie?" One would hope that it would have a direction and that sort of thing. But this is par for the course for Disney and Marvel. This is not as weird as you might think it is because they're so incompetent and they announce everything. Here's a small list of things. They announced a War Machine movie with Don Cheadle, which didn't end up coming out, and it looks like it's being turned into Armor Wars.
That's right.
Disney
I forgot
Plus
they were gonna
TV
do that.
series. Remember a movie that they
Yeah.
announced called Inhumans?
Yeah, kinda. Yeah.
I think it was originally supposed to be a movie and then turned into a show for Disney Plus, and then it's Eternals 2 isn't coming.
Hey, any day
Eternals.
now, we're gonna get it going. Come on,
Yeah.
I have faith.
There are a bunch of cancellation with I've got other lists. Let me shift over. Star Wars related stuff.
Oh
Hey,
god.
do you? Oh, this is a bad list. Do you remember? Let's see. Star Wars Underworld was supposed to be a TV series. We were.
I didn't even hear of that one.
Yeah, we were supposed to get a different episode 9 called Duel of the Fates with Colin Trevorrow, and he was replaced with J.J. Abrams.
Oh,
and those movies were so fascinating because
remember
J.J.
that.
Abrams made a movie. Then we get to Last Jedi, and Last Jedi basically ignored everything that happened in the first movie and made its own thing and almost wrote it like that was the end of the trilogy. And then J.J. Abrams comes back and makes a movie that ignores Last Jedi, as if that never happened. Almost like they hated each other in some weird way.
It's weird.
Yeah, that hack had directed. But lest we forget, we were supposed to get a Rian Johnson trilogy. Where's that?
Yeah,
movie?
and I'm sure it's still really in development. It's happening any
Yeah.
day now.
Boba Fett was supposed to get a solo movie, which turned into a TV series, and half the TV series was actually about the Mandalorian and Grogu, and not Boba Fett. And the actor really didn't care for it. He was like, it wasn't good. Yeah. We were supposed to get
One
a
of the
Mos
worst
Eisley
ones.
Spaceport movie in 2018.
What?
Yeah, Guillermo
Why?
del Toro's Rise and Fall of Jabba the Hutt.
A movie, a show, or a movie about a slug? What's happening? Why are we doing this? What?
Remember David
Who?
Benioff and D.B. Weiss's Star Wars trilogy?
Oh, wait, there's going to be a Benioff and Weiss Star Wars trilogy?
Yeah, they canceled it because of the bad reception of Game of Thrones by the end.
I was going to say Game of Thrones fucked that up, didn't it?
They're like, oh no, they're poison. Let's get rid of this.
That is. Which,
Rangers of the
in-
Republic. Have you heard of Rangers of the New Republic?
I sure didn't.
Initially announced in
Oh.
2020 as a spin-off of The Mandalorian. Patty Jenkins' Rogue
Oh.
Squadron.
Then the other Wonder Woman movie came out, and they decided not to go with her.
Yeah, and it did so poorly, everyone's like, no one wants anything to do with Patty Jenkins. You're in director's jail. Kevin Feige was supposed to have his own Star Wars movies because of his massive success with Marvel. Yeah, that's not happening. David Lindelof's Rey Skywalker film.
Hey,
That got canceled and turned into the New Jedi Order. I'll change that. Acolyte, we did get a first season, that got canceled. I'm going to push some news a little bit farther ahead if I can go find this. Okay, so the new Jedi Order movie that's supposed to be the Rey movie, they lost their screenwriter this last week.
oh,
So encouraging future for that film. I hope it
oh God!
I hope it goes places. Here's some Marvel stuff. I
Right
see
for trash.
Armored Wars. Did you remember that they filmed an Ironheart TV series? Did you forget that?
I
Still hasn't
yes,
come
but
out?
then we always remember. Are they gonna tax write off that?
No one knows because Disney doesn't actually outright cancel things. They just stop talking about them, and then they get removed from the list of releases, and then everybody's like, "What happened?"
Yeah.
Which is why everybody thinks Blade is actually canceled because that's how they cancel. They don't announce it. Which is why Acolyte was so weird that by the end of the series, they're like, "We're not doing a second one," and everyone's like, "You actually said it." Shocking. Here's some other ones. Hey, there was a Wakanda TV show, Ross. You remember Wakanda TV show?
What?
Yeah, that's
Oh.
probably not happening. How about Wonder Man?
Oh,
How about
Wait,
Vision
which man?
Quest? Wonder Man. He's an old school hero. I'm talking Silver Age, I think. Yeah, Wonder
Oh.
Man. He's a big, punchy man. Vision Quest with Vision, kind of a spin-off of WandaVision.
oh,
How about Nova? The hero Nova with the Disney Plus show.
oh, yeah. Yeah, my favorite. Sure.
Do you remember that villain that we shall not name who punched his girlfriend and now we're no longer getting the series of movies that were planned for him?
I do.
Yeah. Hey, how about Shang-Chi 2? Do you think Simu Liu,
Oh,
the famous racist Simu Liu, is going to get a Shang-Chi 2?
you know what? I think they, yes, it's so happening, and they're going to have a moment where he's going to totally tell somebody off for cultural appropriation, and it's going to be so epic.
Did you forget World War Hulk? Remember World War Hulk?
World War Hulk. What
Yeah.
happened to World War III? We just went right to World War Hulk.
Yeah, we just skipped it.
Is he in the trenches of World War One? Does he wear a little tiny Brody helmet on his head? Because that's cute.
We still might get Ironheart. It was filmed a year or two ago. Is the problem, and it
Yeah.
looks like it's slated on the list for 2025, September, mid-October. So good luck with that. Remember the Daredevil Born Again, which was almost done, and then Feige was watching the show, and they were about halfway through, and he's like, "This is really bad, and we're redoing the whole show." So they went
my
back to
God.
square one and started refilming Daredevil.
Which,
Born
by the
Again.
way, if he says it's really bad, it's got to be horrendous, right? Because I mean, he let fucking all these other movies go through. Like, oh my God.
And the two main characters, the original, two of one of the main characters, original Daredevil TV show, Foggy, and I'm a bad Daredevil fan, but blonde girl who becomes a drug addict in the comics. Anyway, both of them were not coming back for Daredevil Born Again, and it was supposed to be a courtroom drama. You know, Daredevil.
My favorite part of Daredevil is the lawyering bits, for sure.
Yeah. That's good times. Daredevil went through a lot of problems. She-Hulk is probably not. There was a rumor that the lady in She-Hulk filmed stuff for Deadpool and Wolverine, and then it got cut.
Listen, when I buy that Blu-ray, it better be on there somewhere. I want to see this.
I don't know.
I'm sure
if
it hasn't
was
been
just like
memory
a
hold
troll,
or anything.
But I remember seeing the thing from the actress that she's like, yeah, they filmed it and they just couldn't handle it, so they cut it because she was a small part in it or whatever. And I was like, did they?
Yeah, is that it? Oh, really? That's it, huh? Oh. Were they just trying to appease you? Is that really what it was?
Oh, and let me remind you, Captain America Brave New World, which is coming, has had extensive reworks. Like they've practically refilmed the movie 2 or 3 times, is my understanding.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
I mean,
its budget is snowballed to an absurd degree.
I was gonna say the budget must be outrageous by this point.
Yeah, are we ever going to see Ironheart? I'm really suspicious.
I mean, I mean, different companies, but I see my instinct would be yes, but I mean, DC canned a whole movie with actors that people wanted to see, and they canned it just for the tax write off. So maybe Disney's going to do that too.
We're supposed to be getting a Black Panther Doom lore with Doctor Doom, and how about
What?
Fantastic Four Doomsday, and how about Avengers Secret Wars Part 1 and 2, and a
What?
Young Avengers.
Young Avengers, they were all
You
what,
think
like
we're
children?
getting-
What do you mean?
You think we're getting Captain Marvel 3 anytime soon?
Yeah, listen, if Brie Larson goes back to that IP, she's an idiot. But you know
How
what?
about
The money's
Dr.
probably pretty good.
How about Doctor Strange 3? You think we're getting that film?
I bet
How-
not.
How about another Ant-Man movie? You think we're getting any more Ant-Man? Where they just
Oh,
replaced
I
him
think
with his
people-
daughter, and everybody hated it.
What
What
if they just start off that movie with him murdering his own daughter?
I saved the world, damn it!
Uh,
Or King Dynasty.
no.
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, there's let's see if I can't. Yeah, we're never getting Eternals 2 or Shang-Chi 2. Shang-Chi 2 is just not happening.
Dude, Eternals is. I mean, do you think that people at Disney even remember Eternals? Like,
Well, everybody keeps
talking
bringing
about the
up that-
dustbin of history.
Did we forget? Because in Eternals, it ends up with this giant the Celestials in the Marvel universe. Like, there's a giant head where they have a city in it in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, well, there's a Celestial who's slightly sticking out of the middle of the ocean in Eternals, and no one talks about it anymore. Like it never happened.
Well,
Like
'cause
a
it
dead Celestial body sticking out of the.
Oh, that rules. That's so stupid.
Like it never happened. We're just not going to talk about it.
Oh my god.
By the way, they did announce a Wasp movie called The Unstoppable Wasp. I don't think we're getting that.
That ain't happening. I guarantee that shit's not happening.
There were a bunch of Captain Marvel related stuff that seems to have not happened because there was originally different plans for Captain Marvel. And so as you sit there and you lament that Blade 2 is gone, because I would have loved a Blade movie, a good Blade movie. I would have loved it. But the problem is, this isn't new with how they manage things. You might ask yourself, well, why is this canceled? Well, poor management. Disney loves to announce things to get that pop where everybody gets excited. But in the end, they can't seem to get their crap together. And they're so afraid of failures nowadays. I guarantee you this is a huge part of it. That things go poorly or things are received poorly. And then there's last minute rejiggering and throwing tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars trying to fix it. And then it ends up, crashing and burning. And that's why we get a lot of announcement, but no follow through, because they make an announcement and they're like, oh, no one's really into this movie. We'll do pre-production and then we'll forget about it later because there's really no interest on the internet for this film going out.
God.
Which was always the biggest problem with when it came to announcing stuff. It's like, look, with the new slate of DC stuff that's coming from Gunn. Basically, It's like they hadn't announced like 7 movies or something, and everyone's like, stop. Look, make a good Batman movie, make a good Superman movie, put them together. Like don't put the cart before the horse. Just make a good Superman movie. Just do that.
Yeah,
Stop
but
announcing
you know what? Everybody
7
wants
pet projects.
that height of Marvel roadmap bullshit. That's what
Like
they want.
the mega list down the road, so you could expect all these amazing. Well, it's like some weird animated like creature monster thing that Gon would be into. It's like, that's not a, no. What do you do? Just make a good Superman movie. So what is this? Like part of the slate of stuff that's supposed to come out is Swamp Thing. It's like, okay.
Oh, okay. Sweet, dude. That's rad. All
just
right.
keep to the basics. Give me a Green Lantern. Give me a Wonder Woman. Give me a Green Arrow. Give me a Flash. Like just stay simple. That's why if Marvel started out doing what you're doing, it would have crashed and burned. They started out being like,
absolutely.
okay, well, let's just do a good Thor. Let's do a good Captain America. And now that we've established it, we got a good Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, and that it's like, we'll put them together. Oh, that really blew up. Now let's get another good movie for these other characters and maybe build it up a little bit more. It's like, stop trying to announce. Like, do you remember the Dark universe that they were going to do? You remember that?
Well, I do, and how they had the picture with everybody from the movies that were going to come out.
Yeah.
You know,
we got
the Johnny
2.
Depp and did they even get 2? I thought we just got 1.
Well, technically 2, because we got the really bad Tom Cruise Mummy movie.
Yeah.
And do you remember Dracula Untold?
Yeah. Was that part of that?
It wasn't, but
No.
they filmed a end credit scene to make it so that it could be added into it. Where he was in the future.
Oh, that is. No.
Yeah, they did.
No.
So technically 2, because they retroactively put Dracula Untold into the Dark Universe. We were going to get Invisible Man. Freaking Gladiator was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Like, we were going to all of this stuff. And that went nowhere. They did the big hype picture of everybody signed on for these. And it's like all those actors are like, whatever, because when I signed on, I guarantee you my agent got me like out the door a few $1 million, even though this project doesn't go anywhere, and the project doesn't go anywhere, but they still have money in their pockets. So whatever.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's really disappointing to see a Blade movie canceled. It's not shocking, considering how Marvel manages everything, and they love to announce stuff. But this isn't actually that new, which is the dumb part. We get canceled. Yeah, this is the standard. This is what we get. This is my TED Talk.
What a shit show.
Yeah, let's do stuff.
The Distracted Gamer Podcast. Big steaming pile of news dump.
As Chance takes his poopy, it's time that we talk about the news. So here's a story. I put it at the lead for us that nobody is talking about, but I'm going to bring up. Okay. So there was a push among video game preservation groups to try and create a way to make sure that classic video games are still accessible to people that want them. And there is such a thing as like libraries. And so they have stuff like video game libraries. And the problem is it's not accessible to most people. Like, let's say they have 5 copies of like an old NES game. Only 5 people could check it out for this preservation library, legally speaking. So this is presented across the internet like this massive disappointing decision that's going to make it so that 90% of video games before 2010 will never be accessed by general audiences, and how horrible it is for video game preservation, and yada, yada, yada. What essentially they wanted to do is allow digital access to these games. And they said, we'll even restrict it to only 10 people can access it with the amount of copies that we own. But that way, anybody around the world or the country or whatever can actually access playing this game. Maybe, I don't know, on a website or however they wanted to do it. And copyright stuff. I am 100% behind video game preservation. This seems like you're just setting yourself up for piracy and issues.
Oh, yeah.
And I know this isn't like the drama that's coming out of the internet, like, oh, this is awful, and they decline to allow researchers to give out of print video games people access digitally, and it's like, oh, you want to be able to put it online so everybody could get old. Yeah, no. And there was a weird argument where it's like this would damage the vast aftermarket of video game collectors. That it wouldn't. Piracy is already a thing.
No.
This wasn't gonna.
Yeah,
and people
like,
want original, authentic copies. They even preserve them in cases. This was not going to affect anything. I do have serious questions as to violating copyright law by letting it be on the internet legally. But anyway,
and I will say this though, like, they are not exploiting this IP in any way. Like, they're not in those cases where they've just like abandoned it and they're letting it waste away. They, screw them. Like, it shouldn't matter. I mean, I know it does, and you get they like follow the letter of the law kind of thing. But
where it's like one copyright holder might own a company that collapsed, that had bought another company that collapsed, or the company doesn't exist anymore and nobody really owns the copyright, or who knows who owns the copyright, or like there's a lot of issues with preservation and that sort of thing. I get it. But then you also have the issue of companies like Nintendo, who have been around for a long time, who are still re-releasing classic games that they own.
Right. But at least you can get them somewhere.
You have access to it. And there are some games you do not have access to it. I understand there's a muddled issue with the copyright problems with being able to allow people to have access to these sorts of things. I get it. It's a problem. Is there a clean solution? I don't think so.
No, unfortunately.
Yes, which is why collecting is still a big thing. I'm going to display a disappointing response that the Video Game History Foundation had. Today, the U.S. Copyright Office announced that it would not support the needs of libraries and archives to increase access to video game history, leaving over 87% of classic games legally inaccessible through any practical means. While we are disappointed the fight is not over. I understand you turn this into a cause, but you have to realize your argument was, let us put this on the internet so people can access it. And they're like, no. I'm sorry, but no. In other news, Prince of Persia, the Metroidvania team, has been shut down by Ubisoft that made the recent Prince of Persia game. Yeah, they disbanded the team. And there was some interesting response from one of the Baldur's Gate 3 devs, which has been hitting the internet. The last notable game on their platform was arguably Far Cry 6 in 2021. Far Cry 6 wasn't that great. 5 was good. The Crew, Mirage, Avatar came in 2023 and didn't perform. So you could assume subscriptions at a lull when Prince of Persia released in 2024, which means people wouldn't be launching their store all too much. Hold on as I open this. If it had released on Steam, not only would have been a market success, debatable, but it might have been, but there would likely be a sequel because the team are so strong. It's such a broken strategy. The hardest thing is to make an 85 plus game. It is much, much easier to release one. It shouldn't be done as it is. Yes, well, he also had hotter takes to go on. If the statement gamers should get used to not owning their games is true because of a specific release strategy, subs above sales, he says, then the statement developers must get used to not having jobs if they make critically acclaimed games is also true. And that just isn't sensible even from a business perspective. He's not wrong. And he's the first person who's willing to say, if you make anti-consumer decisions make it difficult for people to want to get your games, and imply that they don't own their games, that they're just licensing it, not giving them options to physical copies, that digital is their only option, and especially with Ubisoft, the demand to push everybody into their subscription service attached to Uplay or whatever. Even if they're playing on Xbox, you have to log into your Uplay or something with a lot of these things to get perks and stuff. And he's like, if this is your strategy as developer, and you're saying they have to get used to not owning the games, then you have to get used to not having jobs, which is no one's willing to, like, we're the only podcasts that are out there be like, you're doing bad decisions and you should go out as a company. If these decisions that you're making are anti-consumer and nobody wants it, but there's actually another developer being like, well, you'll lose your jobs then. Like, if this is what you're trying to do.
And you know what? It's I wonder, I mean, the fact that it's somebody from Larian, from Baldur's Gate 3 developer, that is saying that, because, you know, that was a game that sold like hotcakes and is beloved.
Yep.
But I mean, it's true. I mean, that's just the reality. I mean, I can't. It is insane to me that anyone. I mean, I realize business people don't care, right? Like this, they're like the art part of it rarely factors into this for the people at that level, right? Like, I understand that, but like things like consumer trust do. And so it shocks me that they do these things that are blatantly anti-consumer, and then are surprised when people kind of go, "Good, I don't want to deal with that." And genuinely, I mean, there's probably been some great games that people have just passed by because they assume, well, if they're saying this, like, that's clearly what they focused on, I'm not going to bother.
No,
like,
and I can't even weigh in on if the game's good.
Yeah,
it might be.
I didn't buy it. I'm
going to be honest. I saw the trailer and I went, nah.
Yeah. But that's the thing. Like, even if that those games were just incredible, no one's gonna know, because that is such a shitty take. That is such a douchey thing to do. That it's like, well, I'm not gonna bother. Like, I'm okay. You guys can keep it. I'm fine, thanks. Like, and yeah, I mean, in this, learn to code, right? Well,
yes.
Learn to do anything else. So sorry,
Remember
pal.
When Learn to Code came out, when in response to co-workers who were losing their jobs? That's the original Learn to Code. And then you had a bunch of people in media lose their jobs, and everybody said Learn to Code, and they were getting people banned on Twitter for hate speech for saying Learn to Code to people in media.
the good days of Twitter. Yes.
Yep. Did you know that Twitter now has 10% of their original staff that they used to have before Elon bought it, and it still runs fine? Because apparently you don't need massive offices with huge amounts of people pushing papers doing nothing.
It's weird. It's really odd. I mean, I feel bad for those people that were just skating. Like, that was probably a sweet-ass gig.
They don't realize how amazing it was getting their 6 figures and doing nothing.
Doing absolutely fuck all.
Well, it's like that video that came out of that girl. It's like day in the life of a Google employee, and she comes in and gets her hot coffee, and then she goes relax on the roof, and then she goes to the stress room, and it's like, this is the worst. Everybody hates you. Everybody hates you.
Yeah, everybody.
You're such a bloated company.
Nobody is a fan of this. Yeah,
no,
absolutely.
In related Ubisoft news, because it never ends for Ubisoft. Ubisoft has canceled Assassin's Creed Shadows early access. All early access is being canceled. In addition, they have also lowered the price of the collector's edition from $280 to $230, so by $50. If you are lowering the price of a collector's edition, you haven't sold out of the collector's edition.
Nope.
and for games people really want to get, collector's editions sell out. So.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Oops.
Does this bode well for the future of Assassin's Creed Shadows there, Ross?
That seems like a bad sign. I mean, has there been any good news about this game since they started announcing anything?
No. I mean, not to go down the list, but the negative feedback of an ahistorical character featured in the game, the fact that they stole a flag from a reenactment group in Japan that did reenactments for the Battle of Sekigahara, They stole a flag of theirs that was featured in the game and in their collector's edition art book. And the group came out and said, you can't use that. So they removed it from the game, but they're not removing it from the collector's edition art book because it would cost too much to reprint all of those. So they're just not going to do that. And the reenactment group is really angry too. All of the massive debates that sparked across Japan about the historicity of Yasuke's involvement, as well as a bunch of other things. Additionally, the really insensitive collector's edition statue of the half Torii Gate, which notably there's only one half Torii Gate in all of Japan, and it happens to be in Nagasaki.
I wonder why that is.
As to why there's a half Torii Gate. So it's a symbol of Japan sort of surviving through the events of World War II and the dropping of atomic bombs. Maybe perhaps do your homework, or perhaps your Japanese expert counseling you all these things is former Sweet Baby Inc. employee, heavily activist, also from California and racially Japan, but not really from Japan, is my understanding. Where they found a localizer for Japanese culture, and somebody traced their IP back to Chengdu, China. So that's a good sign. Petitions signed across Japan trying to get it banned. Literally, people were talking to the Japanese government as to whether or not this dealt with Japanese culture and history in a respectful way. And the government was like, we're going to look into it.
Oh my God.
Because you might go, oh, Oppenheimer eventually aired in Japan. It's like, it did, but they spent a lot of time not allowing it to be in theaters. I think it was months after it came out. Japan is very protective of their culture and their history. Yes, it didn't release initially. It was months before it released in Japan in theaters.
Which is funny because I realize it's about making of those bombs, but it doesn't really.
It's not about dropping the bomb. Yeah.
No.
It's really more about Oppenheimer, who made the bomb in his life, and it's less about the bombs. Yes. I would like more about the bombs, personally.
Yeah.
There is a litany of issues, despite the fact that they push back the release date into 2025. And they have had a myriad of poor reception of a bunch of other games. X-Defiant being one, which apparently they spent a lot of money on and it went really poorly. Skull and Bones,
by the way,
pirate game.
X-Defiant started out as a Tom Clancy game, and the reception was so bad that they just renamed it just X-Defiant.
There was an article today that basically was like, no, we're not canceling X-Defiant. We're still getting a season 4 of X-Defiant, but our player count is actually still declining. So,
wow, wow, goddamn!
Ubisoft is killing it, everybody. And you know what? They get
mostly themselves.
They get what they deserve. Hey, have you ever heard of Unknown 9 Awakening? I've never heard of this game.
No. Not prior to this week.
Stop advertisement. Yeah, it's Bandai Namco published, developed by, I don't know, another company. It is doing so poorly. I think it peaked on Steam, 280 something players. Peak.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh.
It received a poor 63 on Metacritic and a 5 from IGN. IGN gives everything a 7, so if it's a 5, they meant it was really bad.
Yeah, it's really doo-doo. Oh my Lord.
And just no one's buying it, and it still costs $50. I understand new IP is difficult to get into. I guess common interest. Like, it's really difficult to have a new IP break out. I understand.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Before this game came out, I looked up a lot of articles. There were a lot of hype articles of like, you didn't know that this is the game that everybody wanted, and this game is looking amazing. Look forward to this game in coming weeks, and yada yada. No one played it, and there was gaming journalism, I guess, efforts to promote this positively. And I've always had this problem with gaming journalism in general. I'm going to address this really quickly. Gaming journalism is weird. Think about it. We have a whole wing of journalism solely about talking about products, consumer products. That's it. It's like having gaming. It's like having a series of journalism solely structured around the selling of cars. And the problem with doing it around specific products is those journalists now need access to those products. And to get access to those products, to be able to talk about the products, you also need insider information, you need early access, you need the ability to go to these things. Then you understand that journalism, there's a fine line between journalism for these consumer products and advertising for these consumer products. And there's a fine line between the two, and that line has been broken many times. Journalists taking money or kickbacks or benefits, journalists sleeping with people who are involved in making these games and then giving them positive reviews. Remember the Kane and Lynch debacle with IGN, where they were taking money from Kane and Lynch and giving it positive reviews because they were taking money. There is a natural issue with corruption when it comes to gaming journalism. So I always take it as a grain of salt. But when I saw a bunch of positive reviews, like, no, it's going to look good and stuff, and then nobody played it, that tells me how much influence gaming journalism tends to have nowadays, of whether or not they have any influence at all. People don't go across a lot of these websites to get really good information. They tend to listen to the people that they trust and the opinions that they have. Yeah. And it's like word of mouth. It's if Ross says it's a good game, I might check it out because I trust his opinion. We're familiar with each other. He might know what I like or I dislike. It's hard to say when it comes to IGN reviews whether or not I will take their review as legitimate. But apparently, Unknown 9 is crashing and burning.
Yeah, and I mean, the reality is too, because like that's what always cracked me up about. Well, because I think where if I had to guess where the industry has the journalism wing of gaming by the balls is the access, not to the games themselves, but to like the behind the scenes, the previews, the interviews, like that kind of stuff. Because the thing is, like, games aren't that expensive, right? Like if you didn't, because I mean, and YouTubers have demonstrated this, like. There were a lot of YouTuber reviewers who were not getting the games for free that were just doing it. And because in the grand scheme of things, video games aren't expensive. But what is hard to get is that insider stuff, early access to things, behind the scenes. Whereas at least with cars, like cars are expensive as all hell. Like you can't just like, oh, okay, fair enough. Like, I don't have an extra 20 grand around even for like the cheapest shit box to just buy and then review. Like that's never going to happen.
Well, and consider that video games have a separate issue than a lot of other things, like let's say movie reviewers, where video game reviewers desperately have to get early copies because if they want a review to come out when it's relevant for when the game releases, which is the only time to get eyeballs on it, is when the game is coming out, so people are trying to check out whether or not it's worth their time and money. So you have to get it early in order to give a comprehensive review about the game so that it releases when the game comes out or within a day or so when it comes out. Or even early, which is better. So they desperately need early copies, which means that the gaming industry has them by the balls. Because unlike movies, I can go see a movie day of, release a movie review day of, and it stays relevant for that movie review. Video games, it takes way more time than an hour or two.
Yeah, it's. I mean, even a nothing kind of game is what 4, 5, 6 hours, 8 maybe. Whereas, I mean, imagine if you had to do a Final Fantasy VII review,
And get it
Or,
out in a timely manner.
Yeah, the original Dragon Age game. Like, you're
Yeah.
looking at 100 hours.
Yeah.
Like, it's never ending.
Speaking of withholding access, apparently streamers who were critical of Dragon Age Veilguard are not getting review codes.
Oh, the horror. I'm sure their audiences will be just devastated that
Well,
they're not going to play that game.
especially considering that the word of mouth is negative when it comes to Dragon Age game coming out. Look, you're withholding access, and you have every right to. You don't owe them access at all. And if they're negative towards the game, you don't have to give them copies so that they can crap on your game. Unquestionably,
Yeah.
completely in the right. You do not have to give free stuff to people who are going to review it poorly.
Right.
That doesn't mean they're not going to get it the day of and then review it poorly. Like, you can't control that.
Right.
They just buy it with their own money and then crap on your game, and probably have more impetus to crap on it because they didn't get free stuff.
Exactly.
But you know, it is what it
It's
is.
just very indicative of I think the fear that they have of this game, that this game is just not, it's just tracking not good at all.
Everything is tracking poorly. Pre-sales, all of that, it does not look to be going in the right direction for Dragon Age. Hey, Apple is making a Oregon Trail movie, and it's going to be a comedy like the style of Barbie with musical numbers.
They made that movie. It's called A Million Ways to Die in the West. It was fucking terrible. Why are we doing this? What? What's happening?
Wagons East, remember John Candy?
Oh yeah, Wagons East, absolutely. Does it seem a little insensitive? Like, I don't mean to be
To
sensitive
the
about
people
this
that
stuff.
died
I mean,
along
that
the
game,
way of the Oregon Trail, yes.
are they going to make a comedy Trail of Tears game?
You died
Or
of dysentery. Oh, a video
Like-
game of the Trail of Tears. The Baton
You
Death
know.
March, and it's a comedy
Yeah. Hey. Oh my
with
god.
Seth Rogen.
I love a Baton Death March musical comedy. Love it. What asshole? It seems really weird. I mean, number one, it's a bad idea. I mean, if hey, Apple, hire me, I would be like, hey guys, I don't think so on this one. I'm just gonna go out on a limb. Maybe not. Okay, maybe not.
All right, yeah.
But if they're just bound and determined, I would go like, you guys seem like kind of dicks doing this. I just want you to know, because the game
Well,
is literally
Well, dark
that what everyone
comedy,
knows about it is you die.
lean into the dark comedy, or there's a version of Oregon Trail called Oregon Trail that somebody came out with,
Oh,
where
sure.
you're traveling like the Oregon Trail, but it's post-apocalyptic zombie, and basically you lose party member. I own the game. It's a blast. It's just like Oregon Trail, but like instead of you died of dysentery, you died of zombie bite and that sort of thing. It's a blast. It's
Sure.
really fun. I like to play it around Halloween.
Oh,
Let's
yeah.
move on.
Yeah.
Because of me and Ross, this is our first look at Bobby Hill. What do you think? Adult Bobby Hill?
You don't have the screen on, dude.
Oh, well, you know what? I'm going to fix that. I usually have it on so that everybody can see it, and I don't. And we're just going to do this.
Well, it's just me. And
We're doing it
usually
live.
Rhett and I are perfectly in sync, but you know.
There you go.
Oh,
It's fine.
I don't hate it.
Yeah.
I don't hate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fine, yeah. I was nervous because I heard about this, but I didn't see it.
I hope it does well. I hope it's good.
Me too.
I don't trust
Yeah,
anything remakey coming out nowadays. They tend to suck.
Yeah, everything's terrible now.
Sonic X Shadow Generations. It's a difficult title to say. The sales are killing it. Top $1 million. Good for them.
Damn, that's awesome.
Especially with the Shadow movie coming out.
Oh yeah.
Freaking.
Oh my god,
Keanu
they're
Reeves.
doing it correctly. This is crazy.
I don't know. Good for Sonic. They're killing it, especially with all of these stories of games that everybody just hates and has no interest in. It's like, hey, Sonic's doing well. Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Well, by the way, if anyone's listening, I'm sure you could tell if you're a logical, reasonable human being. But unless I've played it, I can't tell you whether or not these games are good. The only thing I can report on is if they're successful. So if I say Prince of Persia did really poorly, I'm not giving a quality aspect to Prince of Persia. I'm giving you it's not received well by general audiences. Because people might assume that we're actually giving some sort of quality review, and we're not, because we haven't played these things.
Yeah, no. Yeah,
What I am saying is they're doing poorly.
Uh-huh.
By the way, the new Lara Croft Tomb Raider Netflix show is doing really poorly, and for some reason they're getting a season 2, so who knows?
The money was already allocated.
Probably. It is doing so poorly that it didn't, in its first week, it didn't top the Netflix top 10, nor in its second week did it top the Netflix top 10. Prison Break season 1 topped the Netflix top 10. And that's
remind me, is how old of a show?
Quite
18
old.
years old?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love is Blind, season 7, number 4.
Oh my God.
Ali Wong, Single Lady. I think that's her stand-up special. Number 6.
Oh God, Jesus.
Yeah, so Tomb Raider has to be doing so poorly, but the money's probably been allocated and they're getting a season 2. I've heard negative things about. I haven't watched it, so I can't give you my opinion. But I've heard negative things, and it doesn't seem to be very good. But whatever. I'm gonna end us with a rumor, which might make sense. Do you remember when Ghosts of Tohei, the Ghost of Tsushima sequel? Not sequel. It's number 2. Because it doesn't follow the story from the first one. That apparently Sony executives were blindsided and really angry because they were expecting a continuation of Jin Sakai's story from season 1.
No, what?
They were, yeah.
Oh.
So apparently behind the scenes, now take this as a rumor, that apparently behind the scenes, it was a continuation of Jin Sakai's story. It was a sequel, and that they gutted it and replace it with Ghost of Yotei, which is why Sony was so blindsided, because they were making a sequel, so to speak. Sony Japan is pissed off about being kept in the dark over the sudden changes of the game. Apparently there are changes. They didn't always intend for this to be a whole new story with a new female protagonist set in a different time period with a different character. It does seem that there is a huge disconnect between what Sucker Punch knew about this Ghost sequel versus what Sony PR teams knew. They didn't know this was happening. As you shared, as I was told, like before when I reported on Yotai last, the game was indeed supposed to be a Ghost of Tsushima 2 with Jin Sakai as the main character. This was confirmed to me by at least sources, as this whoever transcribed this. And I was told the skeleton of Tsushima 2 is what largely being used to create Yotei into what it is now. So they did start making a Tsushima 2, and they changed it. I would assume that likely Jin would come to Mount Yotei, and then this is where he would be facing the next Mongol threat. But within the past 2 years, something definitely changed at Sucker Punch. He continued, the entire narrative was effectively gutted from what I'm being told and repurposed into the story about Atsu. Now, as you've seen in the new trailer, the whole wandering Ronin being hunted by other bounty hunter story that's presented in Yotei, I'm assuming was originally supposed to be Ronin hunting Jin Sakai as the ghost.
No. What? The question that comes to my mind is, so who made the decision? Who in that company made that decision then?
Well, there's some interesting signs that this might be true. The senior writer and narrative designer and writer, Arianda Martinez for Sucker Punch, joined the company in May 2023, which is apparently later in its development.
Sure.
Given that those individuals joined the company, as you'll notice, as I showed these and other examples, these writers and such, they all came into the project rather late in production on Yote. If they came in late, almost as if the game was something else entirely before it became the game that it is now, essentially. That is an interesting sign that you have big, and these are female writers, to come in late. That makes me think that they changed it down the road, don't you think?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
That it was a different game. On top of that, apparently Sony is currently deciding what to price Yote at and how to promote the game going forward. As I was told, currently Yote is being considered at Sony to be a push as a spin-off title in the Ghost series instead of a mainline game. Interesting.
Oh.
This was not the original plan, as I've been told, however. The game was meant to be the next de facto installment that the direction Sucker Punch was going to take this series. And apparently Sony is considering calling it a spin-off instead. Oh, fascinating.
Oh, that's great sign.
The way Sony is currently looking at Yote is they might advertise the game as a Miles Morales game, much like with Spider-Man. Where we're talking, it might not be as big as Tsushima was. It might also cost less money as well at release, when Miles Morales did at launch for the PS5. Interestingly enough, despite the... it sold decently well, Spider-Man 2, but it sold half as much as the first one. And apparently it sold poorly enough that all of their efforts went into releasing it on Steam, and that the Spider-Man 2 people announced that they're just not going to do DLC. So there's so little demand, and there's such a turnaround in Spider-Man 2 that we're not getting DLC, and that they're just content enough to get it onto Steam, and then they're going to move on. Which tells me, oh yeah, that was super successful. Half as many sales as the first game. It still sold a handful of millions, as I recall, but
yeah, but still less. Yeah.
He was told not to expect Yote in 2025 at all. Apparently, the game's nowhere near being done, but it's a very slim chance that this game actually releases in 2025. It could very easily fall in 2026. But if you're getting your hopes up for it to come out next year, probably don't do that. Every source I spoke to said that they fully expect a delay at some point to be announced. Fascinating.
Oh,
fascinating.
Good God.
So take that rumor as it is, but it doesn't seem that implausible, because the negative reaction from Sony executives were pretty negative. So
yeah,
they seem to have been blindsided.
Oh, and it like you said, it is a rumor that is within the realm of reality. It's not like completely, like just asinine. Like
it's not a rumor where Sucker Punch went and pooped on the executive of Sony's face and said, "This is what we're doing," and then walked out pulling the pants up and whatnot, holding fist in the air, screaming "Girl Power." I don't know.
Right? Yeah, as they do. Yeah.
Also plausible, but probably not what happened here.
Probably not.
He was blindsided. He was blindsided. Well, it's been a special spooky time. We'll be moving back to. I guess we're moving into fall. I like doing the different dynamic background for our spooky time of year, but we're going to have to set it aside. And unfortunately, Jason, who is at a Halloween thing, and Silver, who is knee deep in homework, we're not able to join us. Nerd. I'm going to bully her so hard.
Nerd. Yeah, good. You should.
Freaking
nerd.
Give her atomic wedgie and stuff her in a locker.
Absolutely. Find somewhere with a locker and stuff her in it.
Darn right I will. My only job in this world is to bully Silver relentlessly, and I take it seriously.
Yeah. Well, you are a man of principle.
Yep.
And you are a man who takes responsibility seriously.
I do. Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, so Jason, the hope was Jason would show up. He did not. But that's fine. He's got family stuff to go through. But me and Ross had a good time. Any thoughts to reflect on before we end tonight's shenanigans?
Just looking forward to watching a couple more good spoopy movies this month. Been really good. I watched Dracula earlier, so that's a great film, obviously.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, just looking forward to enjoying the spoopy season before we enter into the Mariah Carey time of year. So it's gonna be great.
And if you're interested in me and Ross discussing movies, we do have a side thing where we reviewed movies.
Yes, yeah.
It's on this
'Cause
channel, so it's not hard to find. But we call it Media Illiterate, our little side thing.
And it's a great time. Definitely come by. We enjoy doing it, and I think it shines through in the product.
In our produced products. I quite enjoyed the Joker 2 discussion. I enjoyed both discussions, honestly.
Yeah.
Because the movie sucks so
film.
hard that nobody even wants to listen to reviews of Megalopolis.
So impenetrable and strange.
Like I heard people I saw videos of people reviewing that movie being like, oh, I loved it. It was so interesting and stuff. I didn't understand a word of it. It's like, oh, so you were there for like, I have to love it because it's an artsy movie, but it's genuinely confusing and I don't get it. And I was like, yeah, Why do you think general audiences were thinking, I'm expected to like this because it's artsy?
It's Francis Ford Coppola, damn it. I know it's got to be good.
Well,
nope.
It didn't turn out.
Didn't turn out so great.
But we are going to let you kids go to wander the streets screaming at strangers for candy in the way that you do. But enjoy your Halloween. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, everybody.
Bye.
Happy spoopy. Bye.
If you like the show, follow Rhett, Jason, Ross, and Silver, the world's most lethally stupid internet personalities, on Twitter at DG Podcast or on Instagram at Distracted Gamers. If you liked or hated what you heard here today, you can email them at thedistractedgamers@gmail.com and share your feelings. Not that Jason would care, since he hasn't any, of course.
Oh my God, it's so juicy!